welcome. Today I'll be sharing this sketchbook that I started in 2024 but only recently completed. In these 2 years, I experienced a dip in my creativity, especially when working in this sketchbook, so I turned to my Holbein sketchpad and had a pretty good run with those. I enjoyed a lot of illustrations that I made in them, so I'll leave a link to the playlist if you're interested. The first quarter of this sketchbook begins in 2024 and ties over to 2025. I was trying to catch a tail of my past creativity, so I went back and forth between using old supplies like my brown liner that I loved using and reminded myself to sketch faces from the past. And looking back, it feels pretty constricted and repetitive. For this piece, I used water-soluble graphite and I think some pencils. So I kept it simple, and my supplies are mainly just my brush pens, my brown liners, and things that are just very familiar to me. And it's only to the later half of the sketchbook do I gradually introduce more colorful supplies. I love drawing shoes, so you'll see them scattered across this and my other sketchbooks. I tend to have some comfort objects that I'll draw whenever I feel stuck. I didn't really have much intention with this sketchbook. I thought I wanted to make it like really expressive and be filled with a lot of elevated ideas, as I do with all of my sketchbooks, but I think this sketchbook eventually evolved into a very heavily fashion illustrated like sketchbook, which is not a bad thing at all. I tried sketching some landscapes as well, and I actually really like how these turned out. I was definitely more careful and reserved in the way I worked, especially in like the early parts of the sketchbook. And I feel like the art kind of just lives within the page in a way. It doesn't like break out of it. In the past, I used to fill portraits like these throughout the whole sketchbook when I was still learning and developing my own art style. And there is like a certain type of joy and chase that I do miss from that time when I was just less judgmental and more easily satisfied. One thing is that I'm still always inspired by like the old me. I just really miss the unfettered way I used to work, how I leave certain areas unfilled and some place I would overfill. I love the way I use my lines. So I'm constantly still trying to like replicate or chase it. Fashion illustrations are my favorite, and I love the flow and line work in these series of sketches. I tried drawing small objects around the subject just to make it more like storied, and I used a pretty limited palette. I prioritize more of the line works here, so I use like brown liners, but the colors, there are not much colors in here, so it's just a lot of like line work and the detailing in that. And I really like this juxtaposition of the ballerina and the heel. It's just like a very elegant blend together. This is Plankton holding the little popcorn. It's so cute. And once again, another spread of shoes. I have this process up on my channel. This was a blast to draw. And then after this, I think I left the sketchbook alone and I came back to it after I came back from my Thailand trip, but I only did a sketch of this temple that we went to and I left it again. This was probably the driest part of the sketchbook, or at least like what I was experiencing. So the sketchbook basically had nothing, just a couple of like sketches here and there, and I even did like list in between the pages of some films and books that I've consumed. I think it's sometimes nice to keep like a written copy somewhere. I just like to do this in my sketchbooks, but this is probably the driest part of the sketchbook. I was kind of struggling. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I drew like a baby photo of myself, which is so random in here. I thought it came out pretty cute. It actually looks like the photo, but there was no correlation at all. I just didn't know what to do for it. A couple of pages in between were for my 2025 reflections, and then this is kind of when the sketchbook officially begins. I did not actually think that I would complete the sketchbook, really. I did didn't have it on top of my head to complete the sketchbook at all. I just decided to pick it up after I came back from Hong Kong. I just thought I would sketch a little bit in there after watching some fall winter runways, and the first one I watched was the Jonathan Anderson's Dior. The set and the collection was really beautiful, and I just picked up some brushes and I sketched, and I got a really good momentum going into it, so I just went on and did all the other shows, and I really like how almost every one of these turned out. These were just black and sepia brush pens, and I really like these even though they lack like color. They're not colorful at all, but whenever I do pieces like that in these colors, I feel like it emphasizes so much more on the line work and the strokes, and there's like just a heavier emphasis on the textures. You can see me adding in a pop of red over here. I feel like it's not really translated that well into this piece, but I do introduce more colors in the later sketches, and I just tried to overfill the page for this one. I wanted to add in more details and different shots of the body, essentially, and I feel like it just makes for like a more dynamic scene. And this page is done by my mother. She wanted like to sketch something, so I let her have her fun with that. I really like when the ink reacts really subtly and it creates like a glaze on the paper, and when the subject looks a little bit mysterious. And over here I did quite a bit of sketches of Yohji Yamamoto's collection, and I really like how these turned out. This is probably my favorite collection, and I just felt like how the line works evoke a certain rawness, and like it's really like tattered, and it really relates to the physical look of the collection, and I feel like it portrays it very well. At this point, I was getting a little bit repetitive, and I thought it would be good to introduce some colors into the spread. So I got some new brush pens and some new colors, and I had them tested out, and I did quite a lot of experimentations with them, and I have a video up on it, so if you want to see the processes of these sketches, you can go check that out. The initial run-in that I had with the colors were not, say, the best. I thought they were really bright and a little bit hard to work with because I prefer muted colors. It was only until later that I fully embraced and like respect the original color, and I really did fall in love with it. They go very well on the paper, both the craft paper and the white one, and this is actually one of my favorite spreads of the colors. At the end of the day, I think the red was my favorite, even though it was the one that I was most scared of, but it really did grow on me. Always with a new supply, I tend to be a bit more experimentative with it, so I tried also using it as an outline, and I tried it with the steel blue just because I think steel blue is a safer color to kind of introduce as a line work, and it will still look natural, and I do quite like some of these sketches that were derived from that. This page was so fun as well. Love the colors, and I just love the line work. I am already eyeing some new colors, but I think I'm gonna like finish my supplies before introducing anything new. I also tried blending the pens together, and the colors actually create a pretty beautiful gradient naturally without too much work, so that is pretty nice because it's actually really distinctively different colors, but the blending still looks really natural. These were actually done at the very end because every time I complete a sketchbook, I would always go through it and just kind of cover up any pages that I'm not that satisfied with, and I actually like how this spread came about. I love the backgrounds that I did into it. I had a little break from colors over here, so back to the black brush pen, and I really like this spread. I love how I drew that man in the coat, and I also love this red jumper. I feel like it really pops from the page, but the head was drawn a little bit small, but when it's cropped it looks okay. and this is the villain from Old Boy. It's a crazy movie. And this was like a little experimentation with two colors that had nothing to do with one another, which was the steel blue and the sepia. And this was a very fun experimentation. I really like how the colors blend into one another, but there's still traces of the blue and the brown, and I feel like it looks really electric, and I really like that. I started wanting to use a sketchbook in whatever way I wanted to use it. So I have sketches of my own collection in here. Just whatever I wanted to sketch, I would just draw in here. I really like this spread. I like the nonchalance in these pieces. These were just references from Pinterest. A lot of my art are references. So yeah, I like how like the body language is. This is another one of like my collections. I have the scut done up actually, and the others are still like a work in progress. You can see how it transforms into more of a personal piece. I have like some reflections. There are more sketches over here. Sometimes I like to just reiterate an idea over and over again because I feel like that helps to push me to complete the task better. And there are just some construction notes in here and some like cutouts from other prints. And I've also got this like fabric piece that I did. I thought it was quite fun to use the brush pen on some silk fabric that I had, and I really like how the ink disperses and kind of like it kind of spreads horizontally throughout the thread, and it just makes for a really interesting feature, and I feel like I might use that for my collections. The coming pages, there are a lot of like random sketches, and it's also like a psychological thing. Whenever I'm nearing the end of the sketchbook, my brain kind of goes into like a autopilot mode, and I have just one thing in mind, which is to complete the sketchbook. I actually really like this belly dancer illustration. I did it without any sketch beneath it at all. The torso is a little bit long, but it's still a piece that I'm really proud of. I also messed up the fingers a little bit, so I redrew it, and there's like a lot of lines at that area, but it kind of looks like movement, so it makes it more dynamic. So I think that worked out in the end. Side profiles are not my strongest, so doing that really kind of affirmed something. I just like the energy in that piece, and you can see like I'm kind of like sketching whatever. It's really random. I just go on Pinterest and just do a sketch of whatever that catches my eye, and I introduce Copic markers towards the end of the sketchbook. They just add like a little bit of color, but it's just different from the brush pens because I was craving for color that I didn't own in the brush pen, so I just turned to Copic markers, and I still had some colors that were still usable, and I used to own a lot of them, but quite a bit of them dried out. I really like this line work. So all these illustrations are from the Chanel Cruise collection, and I do really like how some of the pieces turned out. I like the really thick brush strokes and like the movement that it captures. I always like pieces that like a couple of lines that are placed properly just makes the image that's like the best for me. I even tried to incorporate a little bit of the background over here, and I use gold leaf for the frame. Really like that piece, but also a bit of a pity that I messed up the face. I don't know why I always screw up the face on like pieces that I really enjoy. We're approaching the end of the sketchbook, so these are the closing illustrations to them, and I just wanted to emphasize on like colors and also shadows, and I actually do quite like how some of the studies came about. The sketchbook, I did quite a lot of like a range of like styles and experimentations. I feel like you can tell that towards the end it got a little bit more fun and there were more momentum as compared to the early pages, but it's all part of the process. It's all part of my art journey, and I just never expected to complete the sketchbook. I think practically took me about 1 or 2 months for the majority of the sketchbook, but it shows that if you put your mind to it, you can complete it. So I'm finally done with the sketchbook. I have another one that I'm almost done with, but it's a very large format sketchbook, and I can't wait to share that with you all as well. So till then, I hope that you guys stay happy and healthy. If you've got any questions for me or regarding like my art, or if there's anything you want me to like elaborate on, you can let me know and I will answer. That's it for today's video. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys very soon in my next one. Bye!